Welcome to this What's Up in the Nordics webinar organized by Boardman Grow. My name is Jussi Luhtasela. I'm the member of the board. At Boardman Grow, we organize these webinars. We organize bigger events face-to-face. We organize sparring groups, breakfast events for our members, and so forth. You can find all of this at the Boardman Grow website. This morning we will look into the Nordics. We will look at the other Nordic markets, how you as a Finnish growth company should go along and could go along if you're thinking about expanding to Sweden, Denmark, Norway, even Iceland. And we have an interesting set of speakers with us today. Starting off, we have Josefin Hörhammer from Business Finland in Sweden. She will talk to us about the market environment, dual use, all these kind of things. We'll do a Q&A with her. And as with all of the presentations, feel free to please keep your mic muted. We have a fair amount of people online, but if you have questions, comments, write them in the chat during the presentation, and I will try to pick up a few from there. You have also, during your registration, everybody has filed in some questions. We will try to summarize a few of those or as many of those as we can during the session. So Josefin will kick off with the keynote, then we'll do a Q&A. After that, we will have Markku Koivisto from Varjo Technologies. He's an area manager for North and Eastern Europe. He will be interviewed by Maija from PwC, and at the end of that session, we'll do a similar Q&A. So write questions for Markku and Maija in the chat, and I will pick them up then during the Q&A session. And to finalize the day, last but not least, we will have Lari, Mykrä, CEO, co-founder of Timma, that was sold to a new owner a year ago. Lari is still working with Timma. He will talk about his journey. They've expanded quite nicely in the Nordic markets over the years. I will interview Lari, and we will try to wrap things up at 10 o'clock. We will do a Q&A at the end of Lari's session as well. But without further ado, I think I'll leave the mic to our first speaker, Josefin.
So hi everyone, good morning, and very nice to meet you all. My name is Josefin Hörhammer, and as said, I work for Business Finland in Stockholm at the expert promotion team. So today I'm going to tell you briefly about give you a brief market outlook of the Nordic market, but then I'm going to focus on defense and security. So I just wanted to start by showing you this slide as an introduction to the trade relations between Sweden and Finland. We all know that Finland and Sweden are very important trade partners, and you can see here as well that Sweden tops almost all of the charts, as well as foreign direct investments. Actually, Sweden is on the top of all of these lists. But also the other Scandinavian markets are in the top 10 of most of the categories. And of course, also because of the geographical and cultural proximity, they're important collaboration partners. If we go into just concrete business opportunities, in Norway, we have a very important green energy market, as well as maritime, where lots of Finnish companies are finding opportunities. In terms of defense and security, there's two interesting things to follow, and those are the developments in Narvik and Bodø that you can see on the map here. So in the northern part of Norway, and these are very important locations at the moment, so close to the Arctic Barents Sea, and important for both defense and economic purposes. So we're going to see a lot of investments in sea, rail, and road infrastructure. In Bodø, there's a lot of smart city initiatives. It's basically a city where there's a new airport being constructed, and the harbor is also being developed. In Denmark as well, we have a strong maritime industry. Of course, also the healthcare industry with that pharma offers lots of opportunities. The food processing industry as well, and it's a small but open economy with lots of innovation capacity and labor mobility. So that also makes it an interesting market to consider. But just before going into defense and security, I just wanted to show you here the priority areas for us at Business Finland, where we see that Finnish companies have potential to tap into opportunities in Sweden. So the first priority sector we've acknowledged is disruptive technologies. Here we're talking about AI, cybersecurity, automation, semiconductors, and batteries. And here the aim is to drive sustainability and long-term competitiveness. I won't go into the second one yet, the security and preparedness. But on the energy side, Sweden has put a lot of very ambitious goals, such as to, by 2040, achieve 100% fossil-free electricity production, and by 2045, achieve net zero emissions. So there's really major electrification needs and clean energy solutions that are needed across industries and in transport. And then we have bioeconomy and food. Sweden is Finland's largest food export market, and we see potential both for the big Finnish food companies, but also SMEs, and also when it comes to food tech and logistics. Because of the geopolitical situation and also the climate, there's need to create these strong, secure Nordic food systems. And then last but not least, health and well-being as well is an area where Sweden is being forced to address a lot of challenges related to very long waiting times and also not enough hospital capacity. In here, Finnish companies can be part of the industry in Sweden by offering digital health infrastructure, telehealth as well. And Sweden is currently planning to invest for next year in women's health and mental health as well. So if we go into just a brief background, probably we're all aware of that Sweden's defense investments have been very low since the Cold War. In the 90s, they dropped to about 1% of GDP. But then, like you can see, from about 2015, they slowly started to increase the defense investments. And from 2020, investments have more than doubled. So for the next year, Sweden is planning to invest about 175 billion crowns, which is also an increase of 18% from last year. And like you can see here, the aim is to reach 3.5% of GDP by 2030. And these investments, they won't be used only for military equipment, but also Sweden is planning to increase the compensation for military personnel. So as the Swedish army has to grow, they want to make it a more attractive career path. But also there's investments in research and infrastructure. And there was a total defense resolution approved last year, and this covers 68 agencies in Sweden. And there's also a separate budget of 12 billion crowns being handmarked for the civil defense. And here Sweden has a lot to do with when it comes to, for example, emergency stockpiling of medicines and medical products and food storage, but also upgrading shelters. And one very important job is to assist municipalities and regions to strengthen their preparedness. And like you can see here, the Swedish government has taken several political decisions to strengthen this industry and open it up for more collaboration and innovation. In June this year, Sweden's defense industry strategy was published, and that one emphasizes three things. So it's innovation, it's production, and it's collaboration within the defense industry. Sweden aims, for example, to establish a defense innovation agency. They want to make it easier for companies to test and demonstrate prototypes. They also they're launching a defense-oriented space program. And something talked a lot about here in Sweden is the need to actually modernize defense manufacturing, as well as securing access to critical materials and components. So creating these resilient value chains close to Sweden. And something, of course, very nice for us to hear is that the aim is also to inform the market of military needs. Then one opportunity we've been looking extra at in Sweden has to do with the domains air and space. And we actually had an information webinar about this domain in late September. So this is because Sweden is investing major sums in space development as well as drone capability. 1 billion crowns is being invested to develop space infrastructure. And this includes the Range Space Center in Kiruna, where the aim is to be able to launch military satellites by 2030. Sweden also aims to develop sustainable rocket technology, military communication satellites, and AI-based space surveillance. When it comes to drones as well, they're prioritizing anti-drone systems and Arctic adapted solutions. And these are all areas where Finland and Finnish companies have a lot to offer. Something that recently happened was that in October, on the 22nd, some of you might have read that there was a Nordic joint procurement agreement signed for unmanned aerial systems and related technologies. So this will be very interesting to follow and see what kind of opportunities arise for companies to procure to all of the Nordic countries. Then a second area we've been monitoring is logistics. Of course, as the Swedish army is growing rapidly, also military logistics has to grow at the same pace. Sweden has to be able, of course, to offer host nation support to visiting or operating foreign troops in Sweden, both in peace, crisis, and war times. And the primary NATO joint logistics support group headquarters will be established in Enköping in Sweden. And this will happen at the latest by 2027. Then there will be several convoy support centers built around the country. And we can really expect a lot of investments in what is rail infrastructure, especially in northern Sweden with all of the industrial projects, but also in other parts of the country. And like I mentioned before, temporary storage as well, fuel and electricity supplies. And something interesting is that at the moment, the Riksrevisionen, so the Swedish National Audit Office, is actually conducting a study where they're reviewing the government's and the armed forces logistics efforts. And the results will be published in June next year. So that is going to be, I think, even more helpful in really understanding the opportunities. Just to quickly show you there's a lot of stakeholders involved in what is the defense and security industry in Sweden. Perhaps most important one is FMV, the procurement organization of the Swedish Armed Forces. MSB is the Swedish Civil Contingency Agency, and is actually changing names in January to the Agency for Civil Defense. So this really reflects its kind of new mission to really be the one who leads Sweden's civil defense. And then we have the Swedish National Space Agency. It's a government agency responsible for national and international space-related activities. SOFENSMED, those are industry associations for military and security-related companies in Sweden. And I would encourage you to get to know, if you're interested in opportunities in this sector, to have a look at their webpage, because they organize different kinds of webinars and events. And they also, SOF is also organizing a trade show. Some are only for members, but sometimes also outside stakeholders can participate, and it's a very good way of networking and understanding the opportunities, because they always invite in stakeholders from the military side. Then I want to mention as well the aspects of integrating into the Swedish defense material value chains. So the opportunities are not only with selling to the Swedish Defense Forces, but also because Sweden exports a significant amount of defense material each year. This also represents an opportunity for Finnish companies. There's a lot of organizations or companies with export license to produce defense material. And like you can see here, the member companies of SOF, so this is the equivalent to PIA in Finland. They had a total yearly revenue of approximately 99.7 billion Swedish crowns last year. But this slide was supposed to show up different, but you get the idea. There's a lot of networks and ecosystems popping up in different parts of Sweden where defense innovation is being promoted. We have Space West in the Gothenburg area. We have a defense hub in the Östergötland. LEAD was Sweden's first acceleration program for civil military innovation that concluded its first take last year, and a new one is being planned at the moment. And there's a lot of places in Sweden as well where drone development is taking place, and it's a place where companies can pilot their drone-related technology. Very recently, Define in Riihimäki signed an MOU with a Swedish defense innovation stakeholder, and that is Amina in Linköping, that you can see there on the left bottom side. So that was very good news to see that they signed an MOU, and hopefully it will lead to a lot of collaboration that includes other stakeholders as well. So that was actually everything I had to share, but I'd be happy to answer any questions, and also if you would like to have a discussion about the industry or you have any specific comments or question, don't hesitate to contact me on my email.
Perfect. Thanks, Josefin. Like I said in the beginning, for everyone, feel free to write your questions in the chat box. We have a few questions that have come up before. So kind of bridging between defense and security and then the kind of wider investment area in the region. How do you, Josefin, see that these new or increased defense and security investments are affecting kind of civilian tech and innovation funding across the Nordic region? Is it changing the funding landscape for startup and growth companies?
Well, I think in one way, all of these categories are kind of blending, so it's creating new opportunities for civilian companies as well. And what used to be a bit of so to say, have negative connotations with military or defense-related investments, that's slowly starting to fade away. And this, of course, creates also opportunities for civilian companies. And also when it comes to total defense, there's so many civilian solutions that actually can be integrated and labeled as well as civil security companies.
So actually continuing on that, what do you guys see at Business Finland? Do you see that there are some Nordic funding on innovation collaboration mechanisms that we who are representing Finnish SMEs are perhaps not aware of or are underutilizing? Are there, of course, everybody from our side will kind of knows Business Finland funding vehicles, but are there some others that we should look into?
Yeah, there's some funding in Sweden that is open for also international companies. So there are different kinds of, like I mentioned, these innovation networks. Some of them have calls for companies in the Nordics or even outside of Nordics. So those are good starting points to get familiarized with. And if there's any specific sector you're interested in, you can always contact me and we can look together to map out. There's also hand-marked funding, for example, for solutions that have to do with green economy and so on.
Yeah, okay, that's good to know. And you guys are kind of one point of contact to getting to know more about those, I would imagine. Hey, a question from a manufacturing CEO. What would you say? You worked for a fair amount with companies from Finland entering the Swedish markets. What do you say are the three top misconceptions that we representing Finnish companies have about the Swedish market?
Yeah, well, I think one could have to do with the Swedish language and maybe not thinking about the importance of investing resources in having communication materials and marketing materials and having personnel who speak Swedish, because it's like in Finland, of course, in the major companies and especially in the big cities, people speak English and it can be used as well. But then there's a lot of instances where Swedish is actually being always preferred. One is the health sector, where it's preferred many times because a lot of healthcare personnel actually has Swedish as their second mother tongue and English as their third. Then also when it comes to public procurement, Swedish is preferred. So I would say definitely that is one. Another one I would say is maybe sometimes not acknowledging what a difficult market it can be, because even though, for example, one would be a market leader in Finland and see Sweden, of course, as a bigger market with lots of potential, that also means more competition. And the Swedish market is very competitive. And sometimes also favors domestic solutions. So it's important to think about those aspects and see if you have to rebrand your offering sometimes a lot for the Swedish market, and think about new ways to do the market entry. Something as well that happens in Sweden is the importance of a relational way of doing business. So you're probably aware of the consensus, the Swedish consensus, and things take often a bit more time than in Finland. And there's a need to build this kind of relationship where you meet the potential customers several times during different occasions and different kinds of activities. So cold reach through email is very difficult, and often also it's hard to get the real contacts just by like finding publicly awaited information. So it's either the building these kind of relational way of contacting prospects or using some kind of middle hand that can introduce you directly to so-called warm contacts.
Yeah, makes sense. And that's actually my experience as well, having worked a fair amount in the Swedish markets. Partnership strategies seem to work for us as a SaaS company in my previous job. Last question to wrap things up before we move over to Markku and Maija. There's a question in the chat, a bit more political one. Do you believe that all Nordic countries will join the European Economic and Monetary Union, i.e. adopting the common market and the single currency euro?
Wow. That's a very good question. Yeah, I have to say it's a hard one. It's a hard one. I have a hard time commenting on that straight away without thinking about it. I think in Sweden, of course, we've seen recession and hardship for the Swedish crown for some time, but at the same time, there's very much like a sense of I don't know how to say, not nationality, but I don't know. Maybe on a personal level, I found it hard to believe.
Yeah, I kind of agree from my point of view. And Norway not even being member of the European Union would be quite a stretch for them to join the EMU. So not in the foreseeable future, I would imagine. Thank you, Josefin. This was very interesting and good deep dive, especially into the kind of the more of the defense and dual use opportunities arising in the Nordics market. So next up, we've switched gears, not that much, not too far. We go perhaps one step more into practical cases. And for that, to do that, we have Markku Koivisto, as mentioned before. He is area manager for Varjo Technologies, and he will be interviewed by Maija Antvuorinen from PwC. So I'll mute myself and let you guys take over. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Jussi, and great to be here today this morning. My name is Maija Antvuorinen from PwC, and I work as an auditor with growth companies that are quite often backed with either venture capital or private equity investors. And I'm really happy to have here with me one of the, in my opinion, the true gems of Finnish defense sector companies, Varjo, and its area manager, Markku. Good morning, Markku. You are not even in Finland currently.
No, good morning, Maija, and greetings from sunny Ankara. Not Nordics.
Not currently.
Nordics now, but anyway.
Yes. Maybe a few words, and then we go more into Varjo and your role over there. But Varjo is a global leader in military-grade virtual and mixed reality solutions, and those are already used in over 100 defense and aviation programs worldwide. And I think Varjo is not that familiar in Finland in everyday life, but I'm really happy to also note that a few weeks ago you announced a 44 million research and development initiative to accelerate your development of advanced XR training system for governments and industry partners worldwide. And also Business Finland granted you 12 million funding to support the R&D program. Tell Markku a bit about Varjo. How have you done it? Maybe a short intro also on Varjo. These are huge millions that we are talking about and huge numbers.
Yes, thanks, Maija. Normally when clients come to the office, I always start by putting on the headset because that helps it, and we don't have this opportunity. So let me try to show a few slides. Taina, let's jump into it. Next one, please. Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, I won't take long here. Very briefly, so times have changed also in the way we fight wars. You might remember in the old times, war was very linear. You had two opposing parties on the field and they conducted war. But times have changed. Back then, technology developed very slowly. Training was done siloed, and generally everything was slow paced. And this is now a different time. You see all the different elements here. It's all about, we call it multidimensional warfare, where all these elements are happening simultaneously, and you need to fight on all these elements. Some of the new technologies that are helping this are, for example, we already mentioned AI, but also mixed reality, with something that Varjo is trying to help. Next one, please. So very briefly, because for many this is new type of technologies, there's basically three main aspects to what we do. The technology, we talk about being fast, talking about scalable, and cost effectiveness. Very briefly, if you look at on the left side, those you've probably seen those with Finnair or in the movies, these dome simulators. I'm getting a unstable internet connection. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. These dome simulators can take years to develop and deliver. Whereas something that a mixed reality simulation, what you see here on the right side, can be delivered in a few months. Cost-wise, we're talking about a fraction of the price. These old legacy systems cost between $10 and $20 million, whereas we are starting from tens of thousands. And talking about the scalability, also the footprint-wise, you can see here literally a few cubic meters versus a very tall storage building where this is needed. Next one, please. Taina, next slide, please. Okay. Varjo has been around about 10 years now. We have 200 people, headquartered in Helsinki. We also have regional offices in Munich and in Washington, D.C., the USA being the largest market for Varjo. And in terms of references, you must recognize many of these logos. So 16 of the world's top defense companies are all utilizing Varjo headsets. But we have also a strong footprint on the civilian side, for example, in the car manufacturing industry. And we can jump to a brief video next. I'm really sorry for the bad internet. This is the best.
The RBCT program provides the Army the ability to allow airmen as well as infantry soldiers the ability to train together. Varjo was selected as part of the initial production configuration for the RBCT, primarily because of its blend of technology and its ability to provide a mixed reality solution with high resolution visuals that enabled us to meet the specific demanding requirements. They are manufactured in a TAA compliant environment, and they don't emit any kind of radio frequencies, which would make them inappropriate to use in a high secure environment.
For the Army, we have a number of different HMDs using XR and VR. So we use them to simulate driving tanks, flying helicopters. And so we use the HMDs to really get that immersive experience, like you're flying a real helicopter that you can't really get anywhere else.
I see the future of simulation training becoming more and more dependent upon HMDs like the Varjo, primarily because it provides a very cost-effective solution that allows for a smaller footprint and a solution that can be deployed anywhere in the world.
Thank you, Markku, for the Varjo introduction. Now I think we know a little bit more what is Varjo all about, but thinking of how to scale from the Nordics, and especially from a tiny Finland, which we quite often are quite humble. How have you done it? How have you worked your way through from Finland and the Nordics?
If we look at some of the, let me take a general approach. What works for Finnish companies, and maybe what still needs improvement. A brief story from my background. When, as a youngster, I went to study abroad, my father gave me only one piece of advice. He said, every time you meet new people, tell them you come from Finland. And over the years, I understood that this was actually quite solid advice. Finland has a really good reputation abroad. And something that comes from the reputation of the Finnish companies have a lot to do with honesty and integrity of the Finnish people who stand behind these companies. Generally trust Finnish companies. Apart from something that has always been very strong in Finland, being innovation and quality. Maija, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. So innovation and quality aspects. So these have always been strong points of Finnish industries abroad. But if personally taking some points that still need development, I would still point my finger to basically sales and marketing aspect. In my view, the way sales are conducted for Finnish companies, especially technology companies, it's still very engineering-led or engineering-oriented. Talking about in simplicity, talking about the technical specifications, advantages, and the quality aspects. But there's obviously much more to it. I've been known to say in Finnish companies that let's get out of the forest. This is really something that I think Finnish companies need, which brings me to the marketing aspect. Now, this is obviously a conflict because we just said that honesty and integrity are some of the key reputational aspects, but the marketing aspect needs to be more bold for the Finnish companies. And it doesn't matter if you're a startup or a scale up, you still kind of have to, you know what they say, fake it till you make it. But this is needed. Obviously, I'm not talking about lying, but the marketing materials need to be more bold. It's still, I encounter often companies on Finnish companies around the world on trade shows where if you go speak to them, it's this typical, how is your service or product? Well, it's okay, you know. This requires much more, and here we can take a look at our Nordic neighbors, obviously, who are much more forward-leaning and more bold in this aspect. Leads also to brand awareness. Quite a few of the companies that I have worked for, the fact was that the marketing department was bigger than the sales and programs department, for example. The point is that the emphasis on the brand building needs to be set much higher than it's currently getting focus in Finland, in my opinion.
Thank you, Markku. And as you mentioned, you have worked in international sales basically your whole career. What else you could give maybe tips and topics also to avoid? You mentioned that we need to be more proud of our product and be more putting the brand first, etc., and not be too humble and not be too technical. What other tips you might give to the audience and reflecting to the current status where Varjo is?
Well, what Varjo recently did is we brought out a refreshed version of our product based on customer feedback. And I think this is quite important because of the engineering approach that we Finns tend to have. We have a great innovation, and it's the founders and sort of who drive the development of the product. Where talking to customers, talking to your market becomes really key, because then you often realize that you've missed key aspects. In the sales terms, it's talking about customer discovery, and this is really key. So we also at Varjo we paid attention to what our customers had been saying, going down to the really technical aspects of the product, and we made changes accordingly.
Thank you. How do you see from a tiny Finland, how and where should we go first? We quite often think about the next neighbor, Sweden. We are so like, okay, they discuss more than we do, and they are better in branding. But what do you think? Is the Sweden the sweet spot for us?
Well, working for Varjo is a little bit unfair situation because I joined the company a year ago. Normally, European companies establish themselves in Europe with the aim of one day getting into the USA. In Varjo, it was the other way around. So Varjo got breakthrough actually first in USA, which of course is a really great reference. And I know many are now sitting there thinking that, yeah, of course, it's easy if you have that reference. You need to follow where the markets are. And I think now, especially on the defense side, there are many positive developments. What Josefin was just mentioning, happening also on the Nordic side. So basically, you need to follow the money trail.
Well, thinking of NATO and the defense sector, what role does our NATO membership has for Varjo, and how about Sweden's membership?
Well, if I speak on Varjo's behalf, it has been obviously great for us, because now we can say that instead of just saying that we have a product made in Finland, we can also say that it's a product made in NATO. And especially for the defense market, this has very simple technical aspects, meaning that you can participate in NATO tenders, and simply because NATO members tend to procure within the NATO circles. If you're in that circle, as we Finns are right now, it does open many new doors.
How about Sweden's membership? Did that have a certain effect on Varjo, or is it more than that when we Finns applied the membership and got involved in NATO?
Well, obviously for the Swedes, it's the same. Now we see ourselves competing, obviously, in many of the aspects. So on open door, it's open doors also for our Swedish friends. But I think that it drives even more innovation in that regard, because then we just need to, the typical way of how competition reacts. I would more emphasize on the bilateral agreements and the Nordic agreements that also was nicely brought up by Josefin. So already for some years, this was already actually prior to our own memberships. But Nordic countries did see certain value in cooperation within the Nordics, talking about innovation, but also delivery aspects. in the military industry or militaries to talk about security within the Nordics. So drone acquisition program that Josefin mentioned. So that's a really good example.
Mm. How do you see what is Varjo's role in building the self-sufficiency in NATO area?
We at Varjo, actually the business we're in is the training business. And what we're trying to offer is a holistic training approach to all the defense forces around the world. You mentioned nicely that we are already involved in over 100 military programs, and we plan to scale much further. There is a lack of highly trained personnel in the militaries. If you look at, for example, Germany right now, where they have decided to go back into conscript training. We in Scandinavia and the Nordics have always had conscript trainings. And now more than ever, do we need to increase those numbers? And that means we need to find ways to scale the training aspect. And this is something where the sweet spot for us at Varjo, where we are pitching in by, like I presented from the slides, by offering a scalable, cost-effective training solution.
How do you see the whole defense sector? Is this the future Nokia of Finland? How do you see it? Are we too humble of it, or is this the big bomb?
So the goods or the bad side. Let me say this. So in terms of innovation and quality, it definitely can be. In terms of the revenue, I'm sorry to say, I don't think so. I mean, if we think back, I think Nokia in the best times made like 50 billion revenue really and yearly, and it's gone down now to 20, but we still would have a really long way to carry. They had an innovative product, high quality product, and they managed to scale it globally. We Finns don't have that many very unique products or services that could be where there is no competition and that we could scale easily globally. So that's yeah. Regard to Nokia, like I said, yes and no.
We talked a lot about the defense sector also in Josefin's presentation, and you have worked in international sales and also in defense sector before joining to Varjo. How challenging it is to sell in defense sector in general, in your opinion, and more probably than just in Varjo?
If you are looking for making fast money, then the defense industry is obviously not it. We saw from Josefin's presentation that there are a lot of new initiatives. Partly those new initiatives are because there was a lack of innovation and speed in all of the defense forces, and still is today. So if I should pick some certain characteristics, it's still the innovation of the defense forces is so much slower than what we have on the civilian industry side, and therefore now the latest innovation hubs and initiatives are all focused on trying to bring the civilian industries together with the defense forces. This was nicely shown in Josefin's slides. But in generally, it is still very siloed. It's still very slow. You saw the list of the procurement agencies in the Nordics. I'm sorry to say, but they are still extremely slow. They are still very bureaucratic. Everyone is talking about it. We're talking about it in Finland. They are talking about it in Sweden, Denmark, Norway on how to make procurements faster. Because the sad fact is that if you look at the way defense procurements are still done today, Josefin mentioned the counter drone technology. If you start the process of procuring counter drone technology today, you will have it in 2 or 3 years. it can be deployed. And by that time, it is outdated technology. And this is generally a problem that all the defense forces in the world have. And well, it's not something that will be fixed next week or so. So this is still gonna take some time. But the problem at least has been realized, and they're all trying to work on it.
How do you see what would be the solution for a more agile market and decision making?
I need to be careful now what I say, but I mean, if you look, I mean, Ukraine, the way Ukraine has operated with certain innovation and accelerator programs like Brave One are really good examples of if you actually want something done, it can be done. There obviously the need was pushing it, and they skipped a lot of the bureaucracy. So we can see that it can work, but they had to learn it with a horrible price. We should be smarter and learn from this.
We are a bit losing you.
Now that we have a really good example.
We are a bit losing you, but
it is in the industries, which is key here, because there.
I think we are having quite poor connection currently, unfortunately, or maybe it is just me, but I think Jussi, if you are having questions from the chat or I think we will hand over to you.
No, there's no questions, but I think we got pretty well through what Markku's you were planning to do. So perhaps we move on to the last topic. I think it's off time as well. There's no questions in the chat about it, but thank you very much, Maija and Markku, for your session. Very interesting stuff, and super interesting to see what Varjo is doing and how they are exporting and expanding globally. Now we're switching a bit from defense, from VR, from dual use, from warfare to care and neo care. So we wanted to have a bit of a different case as well. I think the Timma case is super interesting from a kind of a Finnish SaaS or Finnish software company point of view. No worries, Markku, we got most of the content really well through, so thanks for the presentation. And to talk about the Timma case is the CEO and the founder, one of the founders, Lari Mykrä. So Lari, welcome.
Thank you, Jussi. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Perfect. We're gonna do this on a bit of a Q&A and chat format. So Lari, to get us started, would you talk a bit about yourself and how you and your co-founders ended up starting Timma, and you could talk a bit about the core value prop as well. I can share the company website for visuals as you start talking.
For sure. So me and a group of friends, I think 5 in total, originally started Timma in 2014 in the early summer. Yeah, I guess I think we had been talking about it since 2013 when I met one of my dear co-founders and then former CFO at Timma, Jaakko Hyytiäinen, at the student pub crawl named Kolmoskierros. At least everyone who's been to Helsinki Kauppis knows what I'm talking about. So I met Jaakko, who we went to the Army or the Air Force together when we were conscripts, and then we met at Oiva, the legendary bar in Kolmas Linja in Kallio, and we got to talking about this like entrepreneurship stuff, and then over a course of a couple of beers during the evening, Jaakko had this awesome idea that there was this website called Pizza Online. I don't know if you remember it, but that was pre-Volt, pre-Foodora. It was a website where you could order pizza directly without talking to anybody. If you were, for example, a teekkari and having a hangover at home on a basically any day of the week. So we got thinking that maybe there would be another industry that would kind of like benefit from a similar kind of marketplace website. So then we got to thinking that like it's surprisingly hard to find a time for, let's say, a men's haircut for the same evening. Like it's impossible. You need to call through, I don't know, 10 different places to find one that has a suitable opening for it. And then we thought that maybe this could be sold with a software and with a marketplace website. So then originally the product was just a marketplace website called peruutusaika.fi, which, by the way, after Lada and Edam cheese, probably is the unsexiest brand name ever invited or invented in the world. So later then we changed it to Timma. But like we got to kind of looking at that problem, and then we realized that actually the root cause of the problem is not the absence of a marketplace site, it's the absence of an actual well-functioning, modern, easy-to-use mini ERP system for the salons that they would use to manage their bookings and schedules and cashier stuff and that kind of stuff. So then we decided that now we need to gather a team and start developing a vertical SaaS solution for this industry. The bad thing was that we knew nothing about the industry or developing any SaaS software. So then we just randomly started calling different hair and beauty salons, mostly in the Helsinki area. This was in the summer of 2014. We ended up doing like 100 interviews around the metropolitan area in these salons. And well, actually, after like the 5 first interviews, we exactly knew what we need to build. But then we realized that it's actually the best sales tactic in the world, probably because at the end of every interview, the salon owners always said that, hey, this is super interesting, guys. When you're done with the product, please call me. I will start using immediately. So then we ended up doing like 100 of those. And actually, out of those 100, I guess 78 started using the first version of the Timma the first week it came out in late February 2015. So that's the kind of short history of how we got into the industry.
Really interesting. And when did you guys then decide to expand? I guess first of all expand beyond Helsinki and then start expanding beyond Finland. So what were the thinking back then, and what kind of team did you have at that point?
Yeah, so 2015, early 2015, we launched the first version of the professional software, the B2B software, now called Timma Pro. Then it was just Timma at that point. And the company we basically used as the platform for Timma, which is currently known as Timma Oy. That was a company. Jaakko and a group of his friends studying industrial engineering and management in Aalto University of Technology had started for other purposes. So that company was founded already in 2011. Why is this relevant? Because to get into the then Tekes, now Business Finland programs, the company needed to be under a certain age when the final stage of the NIY, so Nuoret Innovatiiviset Yritykset, was finished. So we were in a rush to get into the pipeline to be eligible for the NIY. So what we basically were forced to do was to start the Tekes or Business Finland programs. We thought it was maybe 1 year too early for us, but to kind of like be under the age limit when we would have been then finally through the NIY program, we needed to get into it pronto. So that's why we started the international expansion from Sweden already in early fall 2016. Now, we wouldn't have done it if the age limit wouldn't kind of have been there lurking on us. So we would have probably done it like 1 year later, but then we already did it at that point.
You were kind of forced to do it by that deadlines kind of a thing. Why Sweden? What kind of thinking did you guys have when you were thinking about, okay, let's go abroad? Did you do market research, or how did you go about deciding that where to go?
I think that was by far the worst decision I've done in my life, to be honest. We did some market research. We got, I think it was Bearing Point who did a pro bono market research for us from all the Scandinavian markets, so Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. Then we did some research for ourselves. We just did it very badly. We looked at the market. Of course, Sweden has the biggest market size. It's like twice the size of Finland or Norway or Denmark for that matter. We looked at the competition in Sweden. We were young and arrogant. Now we're just arrogant, not young anymore. But that was like 12 years ago or something. So we looked at the competition and we decided that this is actually technologically not so advanced. We will beat these guys easily. Then I think we Facebook messaged like 120 salons from the greater Stockholm area. Maybe got like 20-30 interviews with them. Went to Stockholm mainly to buy snus, but also to have those interviews, and asked the salons like, what is your experience with the market leader? Would you consider using our system instead? What do you think about the differences? Blah, blah, blah. Everybody said that we absolutely love Timma. We will switch the day you open up here. We will switch to your system. Well, that happened, but no one else wanted to buy. Then only later, it took like 2 years to realize that, damn, you stupid idiots, why would you think that's like an average representation of the market? If you just shoot Facebook messages to random people who are the users of your competitor, of course it is the most unhappy that will have the interview with you, and thus not an actual representation of the market as a whole. So I know there's a kind of like this old startup saying, either you win or you learn. You could probably say that we have learned quite a lot in Sweden.
But I hear you guys went then to Norway as well, and that was a bit of a different story. So how does your Norway market entry differ from Sweden?
Yeah, so in Sweden we went in there, hired a small team of like a couple of people to start selling aggressively to the salons. Now, like, we did a lot of mistakes in what kind of people recruited to the team, what were the incentives like, what was the market like. I still think it's mainly about the market. It's like almost an impossible market in our industry to break in, or was also at that point. I think it's a bit similar than if a competitor would try to break into a Finnish market. We completely own it, right? So it's not so like, it's all, I could say it's like mathematically impossible without acquisition. And we found a company in Norway that was doing the same. There were a couple of enthusiastic young guys doing the same with a very poor software, but kind of like very good vibe. So we offered them a share swap deal. They took it. So we had an initial team of 3 super good salespeople, actually same guys who had originally founded a Groupon in Norway back in the day. And they just were amazing at sales. And now we've been the market leader in Norway for, I guess, 5 years already. So Norway has been super good to us. Like, it's not as large as Finland. Like in Finland, I think we have 5,000 salons using our systems. In Norway, we just passed 3,000, but we're still by far the biggest in the market in Norway.
And how about Denmark then? I see that you guys are there as well. How big and relevant is that market for you guys?
Yeah, we went to Denmark by acquisition in again a share swap deal, by the way, in 2 years ago, almost exactly to the date. We saw an opportunity to acquire one of the market leading companies who operated 2 different software catering slightly to different segments. But we kind of saw that there's consolidation happening all over Europe. It will reach, well, it actually had already reached the Nordics as well. Almost every one of our competitors were already acquired by either a private equity company or a consolidator or whatnot. So that was one of the only ones remaining. So we saw the chance, we took it. Well, it was a good chance to take because that probably was the one thing that cemented us being the must-have target for acquisition for a Nordic software consolidator called EG, who then acquired us almost to the date 1 year ago. But
how much?
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah. In Denmark, I think we currently have maybe like 700 customers on the Timma platform, but then we have another 700 on the other older platform that we acquired that we haven't migrated customers to Timma from yet. And then EG has an additional 1,200 customers on their one of their old platforms.
Yeah. When entering these, and I see that you are also in the Baltic market, so you can comment on that as well. But how much kind of localizations you guys need to do? Of course, you guys are kind of the back end of the ERP for the salons, so of course payment stuff and that needs to be localized. But how much of the core product needs to be changed, or do you need to change pricing or stuff like that when you go to another Nordic market?
Yeah, we adjust pricing based on the kind of market situation and of course our position in the market as well. I think there are two biggest things to be localized in a sense. One is like coming from legislation. So Finland is sadly a third world country. We don't have any laws regulating the use of cashier systems, but all the kind of civilized countries in the world, such as the rest of the Scandinavia, have quite strict laws requiring any company that has revenue over, let's say, 15k euros a year, they need to use cashier software system approved by the local tax authority to prevent, gray economy. For some reason, the Finnish authorities are not interested in that. They're just more interested about raising taxes for wealthy individuals. So why not do that instead? So we are kind of like wanting to assimilate us with the Baltic countries rather than the Scandinavian countries, and that makes me quite mad. Also, it's bad for our business because, of course, it would be nicer if everybody would be forced to using the cashier software stuff in Finland as well. But that's the main thing to be localized. It's not that much about payments. It's mainly from the cashier systems, the integrations to local accounting systems. Those are not usually cross-border. They are like very much like localized per country. So integrations to those, and then the rest of the localization stuff usually comes from what features the local users are used to using in their old software. So for some reason, for example, not that many salons in Finland use any kind of like a bit more advanced salary calculation features we offer. Then again, in Sweden, almost everybody uses them. So we needed to kind of code those. So it comes from not from legislation, but kind of like what is the clientele, what have they used in their older systems. Also, like in Finland, not many salons were used to sending SMS marketing when we started. Then again, in Norway, every single salon does it almost monthly.
Well, you guys kind of grew in the Nordics, you grew in the Baltics, then you sold the company a year ago, you still continue with the company. So looking back, what do you think personally or with your leadership team, what were the best calls you guys made? And then again, what kind of things would you do perhaps a bit differently?
Easily the best call we've ever made is understanding the value of super good customer service. Of course, building the software so that it uses the most modern technology and is actually easy to use, because we cater to a market where the average user is definitely not loving technology, and that's putting it very nicely. But understanding the value of customer service, which we from an early point on started calling customer happiness, to reflect the fact that we do want you to smile after you call us and after we have taken care of whatever problem you might have. And that has been the one thing that I would encourage each and every company to kind of have very, very deeply integrated in their operations, because that is the one single thing that has gotten us the reputation that these are the good guys. If I ever need a system in this industry, call the Timma guys, because they are so nice and they take care of your issues in a very nice and positive way. And that kind of radiates, and that kind of like our sales in Finland and Norway is mostly inbound driven. It's not because we're amazing at B2B marketing, not at all. We're actually suck at it. It's because the professionals they meet each other, of course, face to face, but they also have Facebook groups in every country. And in there, when somebody asks, like, what is the best system in the industry, 80% of the people answer Timma, because they know that they're the nice guys.
Did you build those teams when you went to Norway or Sweden? Did you build those locally in there, or do you serve the markets from Helsinki from a customer service point of view?
Definitely locally, local customer service people speaking the local language. The salon industry, most of the people or many of the people are not like super proficient in any other language than their own. So definitely we need to have the local teams in the local markets. We have a local sales team and a local customer happiness team in each of the countries we operate in. Then development and that kind of like stuff is concentrating mostly in Helsinki, but customer happiness and sales is always like feet on the ground in the country.
Yeah, makes sense. Before I go into final question for Lari, there's now opportunity for people online to ask questions. There's not a question per se from Terhi, but just a kudos to Lari for building a great service and very much used by people and missed in the markets where you guys are not. So it's actually a good segue to my final question. Now that you guys have been acquired, what's next for Timma? So what are you guys doing at the moment? Are you expanding geographically or taking more of the share of the markets where you are at the moment?
Sadly, now that we're part of a bigger corporation, there are some weird stuff called budgets and financial limitations that I'm not like super fond of or don't understand that well, of course, coming from the startup perspective. But it seems that at some point in the company's kind of life, it needs to start making money. So I guess currently we are just like strengthening our positions in our current markets, and also we have a big project of kind of like EG put us together with a couple of other systems that they had acquired in our industry previously. So now our main project, as well as keeping the current organic growth in the markets we operate in, is migrating the sellers who are using these older systems towards using the Timma system, and that's a huge project. I think we have currently like 11,000 salons or something like that using the Timma system in different countries, and we have 3,000 using some other systems, and those we need to migrate to Timma. So it's a massive project.
Yeah, can understand that. Actually, there's a question from Teemu from Sellai. He asks about the market entry. So if you could name one piece of information or single data point that you would get for free before deciding whether to enter a specific market, what do you think would be the most valuable insight or data point before making that market entry decision?
For us, it's been who is the fastest growing competitor and what does their product look like. It's not that much about who is the biggest currently. That will change over time. Is there somebody who's growing faster than the current market leader? But if the current market leader is also the fastest growing and the growth rate is high, then it's gonna be an uphill battle. So that's that. I would say probably that one.
Perfect. I think that's all for time what we have time for today. Big thanks to Lari for sharing the Timma case. I think a very interesting and kind of very hands-on practical case on how to grow in the Nordics and make it successful. So big thanks to all of our speakers, hosts, all the participants. Taina already promised in the chat that she will share some of the presentations we had earlier via email, and there will be also a feedback form coming up via email a bit later, so you can give your ideas and thoughts on what kind of webinars or other Boardman Grow events you want to see in the future. But that's all we have for today, so let's wrap it up here, and big thanks to everyone and have a good day.